yesterday's news.
Hello and welcome to Old News, the programme and podcast which looks at news stories of the day through the papers of yesterday. Dredging this week. You might have noticed there's been a few problems with the ferries, again it seems, with their timings due to water levels and dredging which has or perhaps hasn't been carried out in Douglas Harbour. So I thought I'd look back to see how dredging issues have fared in the papers over the years. A reasonable amount, and it would seem we used to be a bit more fastidious, on the face of it at least. I take you to the Mona's Herald, Wednesday, June the 4th, 1930, the dredger bother. The first result of the closing down of the dredger at night time in Douglas Harbour is that about 16 local men will probably have to be discharged, and the remaining men, under contract from Southampton, will be reduced a step in rank as an entire shift will be dispensed with. Another dredger is expected shortly to deal with the rock work. The work, which was to have taken around 6 weeks, will now occupy around 14 weeks. Oh, that's a step in the right direction. We recognise that. In the Examiner, Friday, August the 29th, 1930, we read of the departure of the dredger. The largest of the 3 dredgers stationed at Douglas in connection with the dredging part of the Red Pier extension scheme has completed her share of the work and was towed out of Douglas Harbour yesterday morning by the powerful tug Chieftain of Glasgow en route for Southampton. The smaller dredger which remains will continue to sweep over the dredged area until only naked rock remains. That would be nice today, wouldn't it? And it is expected that the rock-breaking dredger now lying in the harbour will commence operations at the end of next week. In 1936, in the Isle of Man Times, Saturday, May the 23rd, we read of a piece entitled "World's Ugliest Ship. New Dredger Arrives. A speed of 8.5 knots achieved." The Isle of Man Harbour Commissioners, £8,000 new dredger, a whole dredger for £8,000. Mind you, it was a lot of money then. Mannin arrived in Douglas shortly after 1 p.m. on Thursday week to the accompaniment of the hooting of sirens, her own being answered by those of ships in the harbour. She was flying the British ensign and her name flag, the word Mannin in white letters on a blue ground. She made a fine picture as she came speeding across the bay, speeding in inverted commas, in the sunshine, her grey hull being surmounted by long, ever so long, yellow funnel. She had taken 2.5 hours to travel from Ramsey, about 12 miles. In appearance, she is the ugliest ship sailing, her funnel being out of all proportion to the other dimensions of the vessel. The ship carried out her trials on Friday of last week at Gairloch on the Clyde and attained a maximum speed of just over 8.5 knots. Her guaranteed speed is 7 knots. She left Renfrew on Wednesday at 3 p.m, and after having her compass adjusted, she left Gourock at 6 p.m. and began her voyage of adventure and arrived in Douglas yesterday. She encountered quite rough weather, but it is said she behaved very well. She'd been brought into the new Red Pier where she now lies by Harbour Master Willie Moore. Her crew of 4 men were supplied by a firm of delivery contractors on the Clyde, Captain Reid of Glasgow being in charge. Dredging trials have taken place up the Clyde, but she was demonstrated before the Harbour Commissioners yesterday. She will be examined to see she has sustained no damage through her exciting and speedy voyage, and will then be taken over by the Commissioners and put into immediate commission. Mr. S. J. Smith, a representative of Messrs. Priestman Brothers, the contractors, is at present in charge of the vessel. He's travelled all over the world demonstrating this type of craft. Messrs. Priestman's had Messrs. Lobnitz of Renfrew as the subcontractors who built the hull of the new vessel. It is a grab hopper dredger of the latest type, capable of carrying 100 tons of spoil or dredged material in the hopper. The derrick at the forepart of the ship looks like an ordinary crane, but is really a highly specialised piece of equipment for operating the grab, which is a new design known as the level cut type. There are special steam winches fore and aft for manoeuvring the vessel during dredging. The hopper has bottom-opening doors, so the dredged material can be dumped in the open sea. The other equipment includes a force pump for cleaning foundations of the harbour works. Captain W.E. Christian of Howe has been appointed master of the vessel, Mr. Arthur Costain of Port Erin, engineer. And there's a picture of the Mannin at the Victoria Pier with, what looks like a standard crane on board, although it's quite a dark picture. In the Ramsey Courier, in 1936, May the 29th, which was a Friday, well, She features in an air race, would you believe? The Manx Air Race to be broadcast. A running commentary on the Manx Air Derby on Saturday will be broadcast by North Region from the air. The commentator will be a passenger in a competing plane, a 4-engine machine carrying passengers and piloted by Captain Higgins of the Blackpool and West Coast Airways Limited. Taking off from Hanworth Aerodrome, competitors will fly to Speke, the Liverpool airport, where a compulsory stop of around half an hour will be made. Then they will proceed via Blackpool to St Bees Head in Cumberland, across the Channel to Mackle Head, and along the east coast of the island to Douglas. The finish will be an imaginary line between the Crescent Cinema and the Harbour Board's dredger Manning, anchored in Douglas Bay. After crossing this line, pilots will proceed to Ronaldsway Aerodrome, where they will land. The commentary from the air will be confined to the stretch between St Bees Head and Douglas. Ground commentators will also be in action. At Speke Aerodrome, a commentator will describe the arrival and departure of the planes. Then there will be silence until at Douglas Bay someone gives the cue to the commentator in the air. The arrival of the planes at Douglas will be described, and also the alighting at Ronaldsway. The commentary will be transmitted on a wavelength specially allotted for the occasion, but the plane's normal equipment will be used. Arrangements have been made for the Douglas and Ramsey lifeboats to patrol the sea between Mackle Head and St Bees Head during the time the competitors are crossing the sea. The progress of the race will be broadcast by loudspeakers from the Crescent Cinema to people on the promenade, and by the same method to those at Ronaldsway. Perhaps the Manning's greatest hour, fame at last. Still in 1936, Friday, July the 31st, maintenance of harbours repair works for next winter. They were hard at it. Between the 18th of May and the 30th of June, the Harbour Board's new grab hopper dredger, Manning, we've just heard about, was put into commission on the former date, was continuously engaged in dredging Douglas Harbour, note the continuously, and removed a total quantity of around 2,600 tonnes of material. This is one of the interesting facts revealed in the Harbour Board's annual report on maintenance and condition of Manx harbours. Another item of general interest is that complaints have been received regarding the efficiency of the Douglas Head fog signal, and the whole question is under consideration as to the best method of dealing with it in view of the latest modern improvements. Troubles are also arising in other directions. The underwater foundations of the Battery Pier have been examined and found to be in good order, with the exception of a portion of the apron on the seaward side of the pier, which, though not serious, must be attended to very shortly. At the northwest corner of the Victoria Pier building, sinking still persists. An excavation was made to ascertain the nature of the underlying ground, and it was found to be earth and loose rubble filling, heavily water-laden. A broken roof drain was located, which apparently accounted for the presence of the water, and this has been repaired and may assist in arresting the settlement to some small extent. During last winter, the work of blanketing the quay wall between the Fort Bridge and the Umber House at Castletown was carried out, a length of 217 feet, and carrying out this work in the direction of the inner swing bridge will be continued next winter. Lots going on there, it has to be said. At Peel, reconstruction work has greatly increased the utility and appearance of the old pierhead. There remains a small piece of face wall to be built upon the north side of the pier to finally complete the scheme, and this will be carried out during the coming winter. It goes on to say soundings taken in June at Peel show that the total quantity of silt now contained in the 1914 dredged area and adjoining the breakwater amounts to 47,494 cubic yards. The corresponding figure for 1935 amounted to 49,463. Therefore, the amount of silt lying in this area has increased during the past year by 1,969 cubic yards. Dredging operations are to be carried out by the Manning. At Ramsey, the accumulation of detritus from the river has become a source of inconvenience to shipping, and the Manning is also to be employed to remove the accumulated material and dump it at sea. The head of the North Breakwater, which is over 70 years old, will receive attention next winter. A lot of work going on, which doesn't seem to happen so much these days. And finally, in the Examiner, May the 6th, 1949, Isle of Man Harbour's notice to mariners: Douglas Harbour dredging in Outer Harbour. Notice hereby given that dredging is in progress in the Outer Harbour. Masters of vessels are therefore warned to exercise particular care and caution in passing dredging plant and moorings. Care should be taken to observe port signals before entry, by order of the Isle of Man Harbour Board. So dredging in the 40s, 50s, lots going on in the 30s, which makes you wonder why it doesn't go on in the 2020s. There could be a good reason. If you know, well, let me know how it came with an e@maxradio.com. Suffice to say, Does dredging still go on? If not, why not? Do we have a dredger? Whichever way you look at it, it's interesting and it's old news. Until next week, cheerio.
You're gonna be yesterday's news.